Well, it's time for the next video in my FZJ80 axle swap into my Samurai series. And I've got my tires and wheels finally. They showed up the other day, and I'm going to be mounting some beadlocks up tonight. So what I got here is some 17-inch Allied steel beadlocks and some 35 12.5 R17 Goodyear Wrangler MTR tires. And this is actually going to be the fourth set of these MTRs that I've run on vehicles that I've owned. And I really like the tires. I've really put them through some abuse. I've been wheeling in Colorado, run the Rubicon with them, all over Oregon, a whole bunch of rock crawling, and a little bit of highway driving too. And they've really held up well. I've never had to put a single plug in a tire. I've run through on my wife's daily driver. I've got a set, and she's run through an entire set on that vehicle. So definitely good tires. I like them quite a bit for a vehicle that sees a whole bunch of different type of terrain. So. These wheels don't come with valve stems, but I happen to have a few of them in the shop tonight, so we're set. I don't have to wait till tomorrow to go get more. These ones are just, I've had them before that you actually thread them in there and use a nut to hold them into place. And those are pretty easy to put in. These ones right here are they're just a friction fit, so I'm going to have to try and get them in. They actually make a tool that threads onto the where the valve cap goes. So you can actually get some leverage to pull it in there, but I don't have one of those. So what we're going to do is we're just going to soap it up, and hopefully I'll be able to press it in by hand, use a pair of pliers to help weasel it in there. Actually, that went in pretty easy. A little easier than I was expecting. Alright, next step here, we're going to get this tire on this wheel. These MTRs are actually directional, so they have an inside and an outside. The reason I know that is the very first time I mounted a set of these accidentally, the very first one I did, I put it on backwards. And it sucks to dismount one, so it actually says on the sidewall somewhere here, it says this side out. Right here it says this side outboard. So what we got to make sure that we do is where the beadlock ring goes, that's going to clamp on this bead. So we need to put this side of the tire over the wheel. So go ahead and move this up a little bit. Move this side of the wheel tire up a little bit. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Okay, what I'm going to try and do is just visually set this bead pretty even around this beadlock ring here. Alright, now once we got it pretty well centered up, I'm just going to hand start the first few bolts here. These Allied Beadlocks come with bolts. Most of it, I bought 3 different sets of beadlocks. I think all of them came with bolts, except for the Eaton beadlocks I bought. They didn't come with bolts, so I get to factor that into the cost because you get about 32 bolts per wheel. It's a lot of cost in hardware. Those Eaton beadlocks are a little bit cheaper. When you got to buy the bolts, you got to factor that into the cost. Alright, now that I got all the bolts started by hand, I'm going to go ahead and just, you really should snug them down by hand. I'm going to go ahead and use this electric ratchet right here. This thing doesn't produce very much torque, but I'll definitely stop it. As soon as I really see them snug up and start to move the beadlock ring, then I'll stop, just to make sure that I don't unevenly tighten it. Alright, now we got all those bolts snugged up. We'll go ahead and get our torque wrench and start doing the torquing. Now, on these particular wheels, I think it says 16 to 20 foot-pounds, 16 to 18 foot-pounds. So we'll go ahead and set our torque wrench to 18 foot-pounds, and we'll tighten them in a crisscross pattern. And this is the first one of these Allied beadlocks I've done, but in other steel beadlocks I've done, when you do this, the lock ring actually, when you torque one bolt, it actually relieves the torque on the 2 adjacent bolts. So we're probably going to do this pattern about 4 times before we actually get up to the 18 foot-pounds all the way around the bolt. So 4 times 32, that's 128 torque clicks. So we're going to be torquing these bolts down for a little while. Alright, one of the things I like to check once I'm done actually hitting all the torques is I like to look at the gap that's in between the actual lock ring and the lip on the wheel, and I just look and make sure I don't have any wavers, and just make sure that the gap's even all the way around. Sometimes these bolts are a little bit stiff, and that can throw off the torque value just a little bit. So if I see any high spots, and I go ahead and just give that one bolt where the high spot is, 1 or 2 bolts maybe, you know, half a turn or something just to close that up a little. So we've got our lock ring on here. Let's go ahead and get this tire seated. So we've got our bead lock ring all mounted and the tires on the wheel here, and we're ready to seat the bead. You can see right here the tire beads all the way inside the rim here. So we're going to soap it up a little bit. And I actually don't like to be anywhere near these things when the bead's seating. I don't know, I watch the tire guys do it all the time, but I don't know, just the bang that makes. I've heard of people being injured before when beadlock rings went flying off of freshly mounted tires. So anyway, I don't like to be anywhere near them. We'll go ahead and hook a locking chuck up, and we'll set the pressure regulator for 30 psi and just air them up that way. Alright, our bead's seated. We'll go ahead and run the pressure up there just a little ways to make sure it's firmly seated and it's not leaking anymore. Okay, got about 30 psi. And my compressor kicked on. We'll give her a second to shut back off. Alright, no more bubbles coming out of the bead here, so I'm sure she's seated all the way. I don't see anything that looks out of the ordinary there. Everything looks good on our bead lock ring. Alright, this tire is done. 3 more to go.